coming out with SpongeBob cards. Not a whole set, but there's going to be SpongeBob. He's going to be on Magic cards.
I really want to see the SpongeBob combos.
Give me the Squidward Tentacles infinite combo that makes you yourself. I want to see it happen.
Hello everyone, my name's Jesse Cox, and welcome back to Tell Me About, the show where I get friends and colleagues from around the world to tell me about something they're really interested in, and I get to learn more about it, and so do you. Magic the Gathering is a game that's been around for decades. I remember playing it as a teen back in 1999 on my back porch, learning the rules, trying to figure out what the hell the cards meant. And while sure, I know the basics, it's been a while since I've really played. And that is why today's guest is Amy the Amazonian, who has a long history of YouTube and Twitch content about Magic the Gathering, all of which is awesome. And so today, hopefully, Amy can guide me down the path towards Magic the Gathering knowledge. Amy, thank you for taking the time.
Oh, we've gathered so much magic. We're filling your mind with Wizards of the Coast and all of their silly pieces of cardboard.
I am curious what got you into it. Like, willing to make a YouTube channel into it. When I first discovered Magic, it was late 90s. So it's been around a while. And since those days, it has gotten bigger and crazier than I ever thought it was, and I am so far behind on what is happening in the space that I'm very curious about your journey here, and more importantly, if you can help me figure out what the hell is going on.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of Magic cards happening. About 20 times, I think, as much as there were in the 90s. And I started playing technically at two different points. In 2003, my cousin Ed, he's also a streamer, he goes by Demonic Tutors, he tried to teach me how to play. I thought it was the nerdiest, lamest thing in the world, and I was like, no, this is not for me. He tried to teach me and my brothers how to play at, like, I think Thanksgiving or something along those lines. There's a photo of it in one of the old, like, photo books. This is before digital cameras. And it's so funny just seeing, like, all of us gathered together around a picnic table. Like, what is this? I don't know what's going on. Then, freshman year of college, there was a guy named Anders in my freshman year dorm, and he taught me and a bunch of other first-year students how to play, and made Magic players for life out of us, which it's a long-term addiction. You know, it's hard to quit, and I don't think I ever will.
What was it about that college experience that got you? Was it just the people? Was it a different way of being taught how to play? Like, what happened there?
It's something to do that isn't homework. And it's also, like, it's fun. I have a better appreciation at 18 years old versus 13 years old for things like doing recreational math. I was an engineering student, all right? Recreational math is a real thing. You're like, oh, man, I need to solve some eigensquares right now.
There's one viewer who's like, yeah!
Yes, that's
math!
Laplace transformations, yeah!
What was the impetus of going, you know what, I'm gonna make, like, videos about Magic?
I was just regular streaming, and I'd been doing that as a hobby since I was around, I think, 14 years old, back on a website called Stickam that doesn't exist anymore, before Twitch or Justin TV existed. And I was just streaming whatever. And then when Magic Arena came around, I had streamed Magic Duels a few times. I never really went into MTGO because it's MTGO and it's weird. And I've tried it out on my stream. People really liked watching it, and I really liked playing it because I had been playing casual Magic for a decade at that point. I had been playing it mostly with my coworkers. On Fridays, we would get together and play Commander during Beer 30, which is when they would unlock a beer cooler full of delicious craft beers. And I don't think I played Magic sober for like a 5-year span because I was playing it at work, and then getting to play it on stream and playing it in Arena, which is this really great way to play because it's really convenient. It handles the rules for you. I got a lot better at Magic, and I got a lot better at streaming, and I was able to turn it into my full-time channel.
If you could explain Magic the Gathering in a simple way for people who, I don't know, maybe have never played, or maybe they've seen a few cards and they like the art, but, you know, they don't really know much about it, how would you do that?
So this is a Magic card. I have one in front of me. I have many of them in front of me. This is actually their holiday card, which is very cute. Magic cards are different spells or resources. Each turn you play resources, usually called lands, and you use them to cast your spells. Everything from monsters, creatures, characters. You cast spells. You can shoot lightning at things. You can deny spells. It's really cool. And I call it wizard cardboard sometimes because that is what it is at its heart. You are playing a fantasy game where you are casting your spells, you're using your resources, and in more recent years, it's incorporated even well-known IPs. We're getting Spider-Man and Final Fantasy. We had Fallout and Assassin's Creed the year before. Lord of the Rings, there's official Lord of the Rings cards, and they're all really cool, and they're also still my wizard cardboard. So Magic the Gathering is a card game where you play spells.
When it comes to the actual game and gameplay and picking a color that you love, how would you describe the colors and maybe mixing and matching them? Like, what best represents a play style for a different person in those colors?
So there's different mechanics that are tied to each color, and then those color combinations have even more mechanics that are tied within them. But in general, red, this is going fast, this is burn, this is aggro. White, sometimes stopping people from doing things. This is taxing them, making their spells cost more, but it's also aggressive creatures, and it's also board wipes, destroying everything. This equality through destruction. Green is getting lots of resources. You play a lot of lands, you get a lot of big creatures, and those creatures can have like trample. They're hard to stop because they're like big dinosaurs and things along those lines. In black, you have destroying things. You have kill spells, you have reanimating zombies, you have the dead and the undead. And then in blue, you have flying and you have counter spells. You have these evasive creatures that are hard to block. You have drawing cards and you have, well, stopping people from casting spells by countering their spells. That's a major part of blue's identity.
When you combine those cards, what does that create for you as a player?
You get a lot of different things. So it's not just combining, I play a red card and I play a blue card. There are red-blue cards, and there's red-blue-white cards. There's red-blue-white-black cards. You can combine as many colors as you want. They just get harder and harder to cast because now you have to make your resources generate mana of those colors. So the more colors you have, the less consistent your mana base will be, and you have to build around that. But usually more colors in a card does make it do more interesting things, sometimes even for less mana. There will be cards that just have more mana in their casting cost, but cost less mana value-wise overall.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the downside to this is when you're playing, because the random nature of the game and you're pooling cards, if you need that mana to be black, for example,
you have to find a black source of mana.
Exactly, right. So you are sort of hamstrung by the fact that, yeah, I want to play red cards and I want to play black cards, but I really want to use this black card that's in my hand, but I'm not pulling any black mana, so that's not good.
Yes, it happens a lot. Mana screw or color screw is a real part of Magic. Many other card games have addressed this by just being like, oh yeah, you just like turn your card face down and that's your resource. You can only ever play two colors if you're looking at something like, I think Lorcana does something like that. In Magic, you are beholden to the mana system. And it is part of what makes the game unique, it's part of what makes the game frustrating, and it adds this RNG element that you said before, like, you have to get those cards.
And also, as a victim of it myself, you can also be like completely mana flooded, where you can just be sitting there and just pulling these beautiful land art cards, like 50 swamps. You're like, yeah.
I love looking at these swamps.
Yeah, it's happened. There's a very, very famous video of me at an actual like event doing it and just being like, this I'm gonna lose.
So
yes, it's very old, but it's very funny.
And it still happens today. Yeah, it's relatable.
And again, you think it's like, well, it's the shuffle, but it's also the randomness of a shuffle deck. And sometimes you get 5 land cards in a row, and that's life, man.
There's cards you can play to make it so it's less likely that happens. Ways to remove lands from your deck as you're playing, put them in your graveyard. Even lands that you can discard, they have abilities on that allow you to discard and draw a different card. But no matter what, you still got to do the whole land rigmarole. And it's a good way of controlling how many resources any player gets at any time.
And then beyond that, there are sets and decks that are built around so many different things. So A great example, because it's very simple, is they just released an Assassin's Creed deck recently. And in that, the two main things, at least from what I got from it, was you can either be a deck that has tons of weapons, and you have a commander that has all these weapons, and you're just decking out one person to murder, or you can have a bunch of assassins running with a new mechanic that was like...
Free running, yep.
Yeah, and every time they attack, like another attack can go off and I can keep it going. And those are two different versions of ways to play. How many would you say there are? Does it get more crazy than that? It definitely was not nearly as in-depth. Obviously, free running is a new mechanic, but like circa 1999 on my back porch, it was not the same.
Yeah. There's a lot more mechanics. In fact, I would say that there are so many different ways that you could theme a deck and build a deck that I could not possibly list them all. There are probably thousands of different ways that a deck could be. And that's part of the appeal of some of these formats is you can play in so many different ways. I've built hundreds of different decks, and while some of them are similar, they're all made different in some way. Maybe I have an equipment deck. It's like you mentioned, it's about getting lots of equipment on a character and then attacking with it. But I'll have another equipment deck that's how many different creatures with equipment can I get to attack at the same time? Maybe I draw a card for each of those. And maybe it's just, maybe I get all these equipment, and the more I have, the more they discount each other. There's these different things you can do even within these same themes that you can hone in on, and you can build your deck around that.
Do you have a deck that, I don't know if it's your best deck, but one that you really enjoy, be it very silly or fun or, like a ridiculous, perfect combination of every best card? Like, what is the deck that you think about often where you're like, that's just fun?
So I'm a monster, and I like to play other people's cards. So my favorite decks are ones that steal from people. I'll just take cards out of other people's decks, and I see what I can do with them. And it is not a nice thing to be doing, because the cards that do it tend to be very frustrating to play against, and I've got sticky little fingers. So that's what I like to play. But I also sometimes will bother people in other ways. I'll play to my game action addiction. I love to make triggers happen. I love to play a thing that causes a thing to happen that allows me to reveal a thing, and if that thing happens to be a different thing, I put that into play, which causes another thing to trigger, and I'll take a 20-minute long turn, and the entire time it's just like, so what did you accomplish? Well, I got to take all those game actions. What do you mean, what did I accomplish? I got to do a thing. You didn't win. No, I didn't win, but I did all that stuff. It was great.
Is that kind of playstyle what you love? Do you like being sort of a little menace to everyone that you play, or is that just one example of something you're really excited about?
I really like to play aggro decks too. I like a game that's over in 5 minutes or a game that's over in an hour. But I'm also just not picky. I think my favorite deck is whatever deck I'm playing at a given time. And I'll sit down and borrow people's decks, and I'll say, yeah, this looks like fun. I'll grab this and play it for an hour and say, yeah, that was a great experience. Never played that one before. Might not ever play it again. So
you like to experiment with the different decks rather than like stick with one color or one format or one whatever that you love.
Yeah.
You're about trying something new and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, and that also benefits me as a content creator, because you gotta build a lot of decks. They keep making these new cards. You gotta do something with them.
And I would imagine as a content creator, the idea of them coming out with new sort of releases of, even if it's wild and bizarre. I know for a while they had, I don't know if it was Secret Lair, was someone had, I think it might have just been land cards based off of your astrological sign.
Oh yeah, they like made basic lands that had astrological signs. They had hired an artist to make one for each star sign, I think.
Yeah, and so I think that is really helpful to a content creator, as someone who makes videos about all the different things when different things come out, even if it's strictly for the art purpose of it, right? I don't know that making a land card related to astrological signs really in the end affects anything, but it does give you something to talk about.
Yeah, it gives you something to talk about. So if you're somebody who makes these like discussion videos or talking about the story, there's something there.
Like, what tips would you give to someone who is just starting?
So there's a couple things that I can say if you're a new player. First of all, welcome. Try to find a play style you like. And the rules are going to feel kind of like a gotcha sometimes. Don't feel bad. Even high-level players get caught by strange rules interactions. It is a game of strange rules, and one of the best ways to play Magic, especially if you're a new player, is Magic the Gathering Arena. It's an online way to play. You can play it on your computer or on your phone, and it handles the rules for you. So you don't have to think about, when am I allowed to cast the spell? The game will tell you when you can cast that spell. There are things that have strange timing, can only interact in certain ways, and it really helps to have the program kind of put rails around you so you can only play within the actual rules. Also, if you want to approach the game as a very social aspect, you can find people to play with casually who can hopefully help you play the game. And it might even be like, you ask them like, okay, so what spell should I play on this turn? I'm not really sure. I can't really grasp what's happening at the table. And if they're cool, they might help you out a little bit and be like, oh yeah, well, this could be a good time to play this creature because it can block the creature that person has, and maybe you could attack me on the next turn with it. A lot of Magic players are very nice, and they're willing to take the time to help you learn the game. There are some people who are not so nice, but that's the same with any game. You just gotta find a chill one. You gotta find your play group, or you gotta find it online, and just find the way you like to play. And you absolutely will find colors that you like playing the most. Most people do. They have their preferred play styles. And once you find those kind of decks, it's like everything clicks together. Like, I love this.
Now, speaking of communities, can I make the assumption that you've got a pretty good community for people who want to jump in and learn?
Yeah, we're fairly new player friendly. My stream, I'm gonna plug it, twitch.tv/Amazonian. I won't say that we are doing new player gameplay. I'm doing ridiculous gameplay, but usually people in chat are pretty chill with answering questions. If you're like, hey, yeah, I just started, and what's a rabbit deck? And we'll be like, oh, let me show you the ways of the bunny.
Well, I need to know, what is a rabbit deck?
A deck with rabbits in it. You've got, there's rabbit synergy. There's like a card called Heir Apparent. That's the more of them you have, the more bunnies it spits out. There's a guy named Phineas who puts counters on all your rabbits and makes them stronger and draws you cards. There are so many different themes. Again, there's no way for me to possibly go over all of them because they're nearly infinite.
Can you go over like one or two? Like, what are the best themed decks that you have created?
Don't even know if I could say. I have some like decks that just randomly have very high win rates. It'll be like, yeah, this thing's got like an 85% win rate. It, I don't know, plays big green creatures, and then it plays a big card called Craterhoof Behemoth that gives everything a giant buff and trample, and it makes you attack with everything. Cool. Is it my favorite to play? Maybe not, but it wins games. There's always going to be games that are like, yeah, if you just want to win, here's a strong deck. But I don't really want that. I want to play fun games.
Okay, so you can go full tryhard, or you can be like, I am going to make a full deck of goblins, and they are going to be goofy. And I expect to lose a bunch, but every time I play, I laugh very hard.
Yes, I have a lot of fun when I take my goblins and I kill them. And I'm saying, no, but see, I'm killing them to kill you. Because there's like 5 different cards that the flavor of them is you are taking a goblin and you are throwing it at someone. And the goblin splatters upon impact, but it still hits you.
For an outside person, it does feel like it could be complicated to be in the Magic the Gathering verse, because you have, your 5 colors, your 5 elements, whatever you will say there, that you can then mix and make multicolor decks that then you can also have various cards, be it, I have some Planeswalkers and I have my Final Fantasies and I've combined them together, and like, can you do that? And more importantly, can I just show up to someone's house and be like, yeah, I got my, I don't even know what, it's so crazy.
Like, you could be like, I have my Aragorn deck.
Yeah, like I brought my Lord of the Rings, Final Fantasy, Street Fighter deck.
Yeah.
And you can do all of that.
You can. There are some people who don't take kindly, though, to the universes beyond. So Magic, it takes itself kind of seriously at points. And at other points, it takes itself very unseriously. This is within the universe of Magic the Gathering. There are what's called unsets, unstable, unhinged. These are sets that are designed to be jokes. They're designed to be silly, but they still incorporate a lot of Magic flavor, and people love those. And those are sets that you are not allowed to play competitively in tournaments for the most part. But those cards kind of set the precedent of Magic the Gathering is only as serious as you make it. That said, there's a lot of players who hate Universes Beyond. They think that this is the thing that's killing Magic. But like, there's been something killing Magic since Magic first started. Everything is killing Magic, but everything's making Magic grow. These Universes Beyond cards are bringing in new people. I bet that you probably saw some of them and you were interested. You're like, oh yeah.
Every single time I see a new release, I have to stop myself from instantly buying it.
Oh my God, that's
I'm like,
so
hold
real.
on. Yeah, I'm like, I don't have the time. Like, who am I going to play with right now? I have to find people to play with. I have to buy the cards. I have to make new decks. And I'm like, no. I will stick to the decks that are in my binders from 20 years ago that are just right over there. And I'm like, those are fine. I don't need anything new. And I'm like,
no, I think you might need
Final
something new. If they're 20 years
Yeah.
old, you probably won't be able to do much with them because Magic's gotten a lot more complicated. There's a lot more words on each card now. And if you are willing to get into Magic, it's always a good time to get into Magic because they keep adding new things. It's always exciting. They've been releasing more and more sets, which can get a little overwhelming because it went from maybe 4 sets a year to close to 10 sets a year. It's going to be 6, which is not as bad. 7 if you count. There's a reprints only set. There's always stuff going on. And I would say that most people, they're just happy to get to play. They like whatever format they play. And there's different formats of Magic, which is to say ways of playing. Either certain cards are legal. There's a really popular thing called Commander where you have a legendary creature that's helming your deck and you can only play cards in their colors. There's a lot of different ways to play Magic, and there's always a way for a different person. There's always going to be a favorite format for somebody.
you mentioned that maybe my 20-year-old cards may not be up to snuff. Is there a reason for was there some point in the timeline where they changed those cards, or is it just they're not the best cards I could have right now? Or is it straight up like an old card got a completely redone text and ability? Is that what's going on?
Some of all of them. So occasionally cards will get eroded. Usually it means that they have to edit the card because there's something wrong with the rules text that doesn't actually make sense or it's unclear. But also, cards get stronger over time. It's called power creep. They make a more powerful version of a card from 5 years ago or a more specific version of a card. And then there's also just not all cards get played in all formats. So if your cards are 20 years old, they're probably only legal in like Vintage, Legacy, and Commander, and a couple of them might be printed into Modern at this point. But those are all formats that you might have a few cards that get played in them, but the deck as a whole will need newer cards in it to be competitive. Now, you don't have to be competitive. You can make essentially kitchen table Magic decks out of whatever you have, and you'll be able to play that. I should also mention that since you last played, the rules have changed. The whole of Magic, the rules do change on occasion. They just changed like how damage is assigned when you're blocking with creatures. But back in 2009, the year I started playing, they made a really big pair of changes. And the first one was damage does not go on the stack anymore. That's going to mean nothing to people who don't know what Magic is. People who do are like, yeah, back in my day, the damage went on the stack. You could block with something and kill it. It would still deal damage. And the other one was mana burn. It used to be that if you had unspent mana in your pool, that's the energy that you generate that you spend on cards and abilities, it would hurt you. So there's a thing called mana burn, and it's gone. It no longer hurts you.
Where's the line between that's official, you can bring that to a tournament, and not, right? Where's the demarcation line of what people are chill with and what people will be like, no, that's not going to work for us?
Tournaments, they're usually pretty strict about the rules. They want you to have legally printed versions of cards that are all like for that format. There's usually even like you can't have super beaten up cards unless they're in good sleeves because they consider them marked, and like you could technically, if you were really dexterous, cheat by shuffling them or like telling from the side of the card. That is so ridiculous to me because I can barely shuffle. I'm just like, yeah, I'm smashing these cards together. It'll work. And then people be like, yeah, I got a disqualification on this round because my sleeves weren't fresh enough. And I'm like, what are you your sleeves weren't fresh enough? Yeah, they were afraid of marked cards. I don't understand that. I'm using like 8-year-old sleeves on one of my decks. Fine, it's okay. Casual Magic, there's a huge range. Commander being this format I mentioned before, that's what a lot of people will be playing these days. There are people who will let you bring custom cards, fake cards that you designed yourself. There are people who will let you print cards if you don't own a physical copy and throw them in a sleeve and play with them as if you owned an actual copy of the card. There's people who will let you break the rules, do things that are just like not quite within rules. It's called Rule Zero, this kind of making an exception to the rules. But there are rules to all these formats that people, for the most part, want you to follow.
Is this because there's a random nature to it? You've shuffled a deck, and now you could have, for example, made a whole deck of amazing cards because you brought your cards from home that you printed yourself, and you wrote the rules in crayon, and you bring them to an event. But because you're randomly drawing, there's some element of fairness to it where you're not ultra cheating because you brought your cards on notebook paper to an event. Is that kind of the vibe?
So the full name of the game is Magic the Gathering, and it comes down to, it's about the gathering. It's a social game you can play with your friends. And if you're playing it predominantly to be social and not to win or, I don't know, practice numbers with your buddies, then you're playing for fun. So if somebody wants to increase the fun by doing some silly stuff, great. Some people will not, by the way, be okay with breaking any rules, even in a casual environment. It's always going to be up to the players.
I think it's so interesting the way that Magic has expanded from just a card game to storytelling and video games and creating worlds. Is any of that something that affects the actual game? You know how when you think of Warhammer, for example, they'll do lore for rule sets and things like that. Or if you think of other IPs, the idea of they have a game, they start creating lore, and then that lore will then change the game. Is that a thing that happens frequently with Magic?
Pretty much every Magic set has a story. They release either short stories online, sometimes they publish books, or sometimes it's just novellas that are like ebooks you can buy online, and they usually tie in directly to a set. So I'm actually going to grab a book from behind me right here. Brothers War. Yeah, my copy is a little beaten up. Ignore that the cover's kind of ripped up. It is a book from, I want to say 1995 though. So, sorry, 98. Yeah, here we go. This book's a little beaten up because it's been around for a long time. And it features characters that were in Magic the Gathering at the time of its writing. But it doesn't actually tell the story that was happening in Magic at that time. In fact, some people might know that there was a set called The Brothers War that came out within the last couple of years, and it tells the story of this book. So sometimes things are written together. So for example, the last sets that came out, Bloomborough, they had web stories, it told the story, and the story was also on the cards. But this set, which came out a couple years ago, is based on a book that was written over 20 years ago, or around 20 years ago. It goes both ways. The people who care predominantly about the story and the characters are usually called Vorthos within the Magic world. In general, Magic does not get into its story as much as, I'll give Warhammer as the exact example. And also the other things that show up in Magic, like that use the IP tie-in video games, tend to not be good. Yeah, that's the best way I can put it. So right now, my partner is playing the Warhammer 40k game called Rogue Trader. It's awesome. It's a really great kind of Pathfinder XCOM style RPG where you are doing tactical move sets. It's got like choose your own adventure elements. I think honestly the game would have done a lot better and people would know about it if it didn't come out right around the same time as Baldur's Gate 3. Sometimes that happens though, a better game in the same genre, or just a bigger game in the same genre. But like, that's a great tie-in game. Now, the last Magic the Gathering tie-in game was so bad that it got canceled in beta and they had to refund everybody who spent money on it. It was a free-to-play action RPG that originally they tried to sell as an MMO, but everybody was like, this is instance-based, this isn't an MMO. And yeah, no, not a great game. Sorry, Magic Legends.
But was there anything, besides the last failed attempt by Magic that really got you that wasn't just the card game?
That's actually pretty tough because I think a lot of it's actively bad. I don't know. There's something about like their more recent attempts, and also just some of the attempts over time, just haven't been good. They either have been predominantly focused on like a free-to-play market, how do I maximize capital without actually building a good game, and other times it's just old, it's just not good, and I don't think that they've really put that much effort into it. There's a very old game. It's a game called Chandalar, which a lot of people like to play. Chandalar was a video game that allowed you to build your deck within the game. You explore this world, and you're playing Magic. It's using Magic settings, Magic characters, things like that. But it also is from 97. It's an old game, and I haven't even played it. I just know about it. The other Magic tie-ins games, there was a Magic Tactics game that I heard was not terrible. I would love to try it sometime, but it's apparently a little tricky to emulate. You can't, like, get any of these games on Steam or anything. They're not licensed out.
Not even like a hold on. Is it on GOG?
Oh my gosh, is it? I think it's before Game Keys existed.
I looked up both of these, and hilariously, there is a series of posts on GOG asking for the game.
Oh no.
But no actual game. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you can't even play these games, like, legally. You can't get a copy of them. Mm-hmm. So the ones that are good are so old you can't find them, and the new ones are so not good there's no reason to play them, or they don't exist anymore. There was going to be a Netflix tie-in anime, or at least an animated series. It was there, and then it was dead, and it was there. There was also going to be a Fox movie that was there, and then dead, and then there, and then dead. And now Hasbro, I believe, has canceled all of their animation projects. No more Transformers movies for me, which is just tragic.
What would the movies even be about?
The show, I guess, was supposed to follow some of the Planeswalker characters, talk about their origin stories.
Is that kind of the thing they like pushing, Planeswalkers?
At least they used to. I think they're doing a little less of it now because there's something that happened within the story that fewer characters are Planeswalkers. They lost their spark, and that's what allowed them to teleport between these different worlds. But there are now these tunnels called Omen Paths that are just connecting the worlds. So somebody from the cowboy plane of Thunder Junction can just walk through a tunnel and end up in fantasy Egypt, Amonkhet. So, sure, okay, that's anybody can go between planes.
Can I ask, just as a giant lore nerd, and it's totally fine to spoil, and hey, everyone watching, if you don't want the spoil, just skip ahead. What caused that? Because the idea of there are special people who have the magic to travel between the planes, and then, just go down the tunnel, you'll be there. Like, what occurred to make that a possibility? And do you know why they made this choice?
I think I'll start with the why. I think they made this choice because they wanted to be able to have characters that you love and recognize that weren't Planeswalkers show up in different places. Also, you could print them now as legendary characters, legendary creatures, which you can play in the format Commander as your commander, which people really like. So the other reason is there was something that happened on the last major arc, which is the New Phyrexia Invasion of New Phyrexia arc. These monsters called the Phyrexians wanted to conquer every single plane at the same time. And they did that by growing a giant tree that branched into every plane so they could send their invading forces in. And they're kind of like the Borg. They assimilate the people they're attacking, so they're able to turn them against their own people. And the damage dealt by this giant tree caused irreparable damage to the blind eternities, the space between worlds. And as part of the healing of the planes, this isn't 100% stated, it has absorbed the sparks back from some planeswalkers, and these tunnels, these omen paths as they're called, have been left behind, these scars.
I love the phrase, the damage caused by this large tree. It's very funny.
So it's a seed planted that was made with the seed of Tyrite, which is the world tree, which is based on like the Norse mythos. So like they're doing all this stuff, and they did lead up into this. There are parts of the story from the like last 5 years that were all contributing to this. And this is the arc that started after the War of the Spark arc, which is the previous one that was Nicol Bolas and the Gatewatch fighting against him. One of the planes changed names recently. Kaladesh is now Avishkar. The in-universe reason for that is there was a revolt on Kaladesh, and the new incoming government has changed the name to, I guess, reflect the change in who is running this country/plane. And then the out-of-universe one is, hey, actually, turns out this is a slightly offensive name, and we wanted to move away from that, so maybe less of that name. But rules don't really change because of story reasons, because there aren't as many major story beats that people, I think, pay attention to.
I guess when I think about joining something for the first time or trying something new, a lot of people are hesitant because they don't want to seem stupid when they play, and they don't want to seem like, I don't know what I'm doing, so they just don't try. Is there any faux pas or anything that you should be aware of in the community? You know, like if you travel abroad, here are some tips on how to do. Is there anything in Magic the Gathering that is like, okay, this is, people frown on this, but like, it's chill if you do this?
Okay, so usually when you have your card pieces in front of you on the table, you put the creatures in the front, the furthest away from you, and the lands at the back. Some people will put lands in the front. My partner did this the first time he played, and everyone at the table laughed at him, and he doesn't know why. So we had to be like, oh, that's just, it makes you look silly. So put your lands close to you. That's where they go.
Okay.
But for the most part, yeah, it's like, I'd say that's one of the good things about playing Arena is you're embarrassing yourself in front of strangers who are also usually new players. They don't even know. And you don't get to place the game pieces. It'll always put the lands closer to you.
Yeah, you'll see where the cards are supposed to go if it's on a mat in front of you.
Yes.
And that's pretty helpful. So I think you said it earlier, but just to be clear, you would recommend, if you're a first timer, trying one of the games first rather than jumping into the cards.
Specifically Arena. There's another online Magic client called Magic the Gathering Online. People oftentimes compare it to a spreadsheet. It's like playing Excel, which, sure, it's playing Magic, but it's very tedious. It's a little manual. You have to already know how to play in order to play Magic the Gathering Online. Magic the Gathering Arena, it'll show you how to play. It's got a tutorial. It has this thing called a color challenge where it introduces you to 2 color decks. And that's a very nice way to get familiar with spells, timing, lands, everything else. And also it will give you some cards so you can jumpstart your collection.
Speaking of cards, obviously if you're doing it online, you're getting cards that you would get through a random system when you open packs there or whatever. But in real life, you're forming your deck. You're putting stuff together, and you're like, man, I just need that one card, and everything will be perfect. What is the card resale market like? Has it exploded since I was a wee lad, where, a card that I want, I'd be like, $40? Oh, man. Is it much crazier now, or is it because there's so much that's out there, some of the prices have come down when it comes to individual cards that are not like super ultra rare, mega foil, like inverse, like just a card you want? Is it crazy right now? Is it pretty easy to, I'll go to eBay and find it? Like what's that part like?
Finding them online, not hard. So you can find whatever card you need, but some of them are going to be really pricey. There is a robust secondary market, and I would recommend that you use it if you're looking for specific cards. If you're like, I need to buy Shoulder the Apocalypse because it's part of my deck, it's very competitive, and it's also $80 a copy. Oh my god, for the cheapest version? Oh no. So yeah, for the most part, cards won't cost more than like $1 or so a piece. But especially if you're playing competitively, if you're looking for the super strong cards that are kind of hard to come by, the rares, the mythic rares, they can cost a bit of money. And I will say, you should probably buy singles. It can be fun opening packs. I've got like some pack wrappers here because you get that kind of random element. Like, yes, I could be getting anything. Maybe I'll open that super rare card in here, or maybe you'll get nothing, and then you're just left with a bunch of cards you're never going to use. And to quote the professor from Tellurian Community College, buy singles. It's the way to do it.
But what's the thought behind, okay, I've just started getting into it, and I'm really interested in making like a really cool deck because I don't know, I saw Bloomburrow, and I really like Jace the Fox and that Mouse Soldier. They're so cute. And I want to just get them all. Is it wise to just go to, I don't know, Amazon and buy a full box of cards and just start opening? Like, is it possible to get everything from one box? I'm assuming no, but could you get close?
You could get a lot of stuff, and you could get a cool variety of things. You could probably get like a bunch of different rares, a bunch of cards that are like within the theme you're looking for, but you won't ever get like a complete collection out of the box. There's just no way to do it. But there are pre-constructed decks that they sell, and these are usually themed decks. They tend to be commander decks, and they are usually a really good product. You can find reviews of them online. Lots of great content creators will even play with those decks. I've participated in a bunch of those videos, and that's one of the best ways to start building your paper collection, is to buy a pre-constructed commander deck and then tinker with it. Add and remove cards. There's a website called EDH Rec that shows you what other people put into their deck. Do not just try and copy paste a deck list from there. It will send you down a rabbit hole and you will feel worse for it. But like that, it's a really great resource to be like, oh my God, I never would have thought of the synergy between this card and this card. Turns out they're an infinite combo and I can win the game with just those. And that's awesome. But like, I have a stack of those decks up there. That's all of those up there. Those are all Commander precons. Those are all pre-built decks that you can purchase. You can play them right out of the box, and they're usually pretty fun.
So I'm in. I want to play Magic. I love it. Everything you said has got me. I'm just so ready. And now today I go out and I buy a ton of cards.
Oh yeah, all the cards.
How do I store those? What do I do with those? What happens when I have 100, 200, 500 cards? What becomes of my life when I have all these cards? What's the best way to store them? What's the best way to keep them? Make sure you can use them years and years later, assuming they're still usable. What would you suggest for people who aren't just doing digital, they're doing physical?
So I have a few too many cards. Pretty much everything behind me is Magic cards. I like these. These are Fat Pack boxes, or booster bundle boxes now. You buy what's called a booster bundle, and it comes with a box. And then the box, you can put the cards in. And it keeps them mostly sorted. They stay pretty flat in here. They're not going to get too messed around with. Don't wrap them up in a rubber band, even though it's really fun if you're trying to maintain the collecting value of them. But if you just want to put them in a box so they stay nice and neat and you can sort them and organize them, I recommend the booster bundles. Also, if you're just buying a couple packs at a time, these do come with packs in them. So instead of buying a whole booster box, the booster bundles are kind of nice in between because they come with the storage. So that's me shilling for a Magic product that has a secondary use. I like boxes. They're good. So I tried at one point to get more of my collection sorted into like other types of boxes, and I could never buy enough boxes of the type. And at one point I was like, oh, I really like these clear ones that have dividers you can put in them, and I bought like 20 of them, and then I went to go buy more and they stopped selling them, and I was like, no, now I have mismatched boxes. Now these, they keep selling these. They've been selling these for 20 plus years.
Well, it makes sense then. So besides putting it in the boxes that like we just saw, do you have any that you're like, this is in the hardest, tightest plastic seal? Like, these are my best cards.
I don't know if I have any here. So there's cases that you can like put the cards into. There's sleeves that you can put them into. The sleeves, there's different qualities. A lot of them are meant to be played with. You can double sleeve them. Put them in a like little clear sleeve that goes into another sleeve. Here, this one's in a top loader. So great, dropping them. But see, that's why it's in the hard sleeve, because I'm dropping it all over the place. This is Laughing Jasper Flint. It's a card I really like, and I put it next to artwork of Laughing Jasper Flint over there. And it's in this top loader, so it is nice and protected. There's another sleeve inside that. If I were to mail it to somebody, this is a nice way to do it. It's not going to get messed up in the post. And also, like, yay, I can just throw it around and it's not going to get damaged. Don't bend it too much. You still can. But like, it's a tough piece of plastic. So sleeves, especially if you're playing with the cards, to protect them if you care about your secondary market value. And then like these top loaders, if you're like trying to case them for something. There's also for your super duper ultra mega rare cards, which I do not own, your $1,000 cards, your real special pieces. You can have them slabbed. And slabbing is where a grader will take it, make sure it's real, put it within a case, and it gets sealed in there. Now you can take it out of the slab, but doing so essentially says like, oh, I'm not keeping it the condition it's been graded to within this case. And you'll hear people talk about it's on a 10-point scale, talking about the shape that the card's in. It will have it properly marked, like what edition it is, if it was part of like a misprint or any other collectability, if it's foil, non-foil, all of that stuff will be noted on it.
Is it a company that grades them?
There's a couple companies. I don't do this, so I'm unfortunately not familiar with them, but I know that there's a couple out there. And probably you can even find some like local stores that do it if you're in a major city. I think that there are a couple big stores that do it. None of the ones in Boston, because we don't have a thriving LGS scene, sadly.
I would be so stressed taking my favorite new card, this ultra rare card, and then like shipping it off to someone to be like, here, you can.
Because you'd have to put it in like an insured envelope and be like, well, I don't know the value of it yet, but I'm gonna guess it's a couple $100, so I'm gonna pay like $50 in insurance.
I can only imagine what that's like. And then the idea of I'm sending it to someone to grade, and I think it's great, and they give it. It's like in high school if you think you know the test, but you didn't really study.
And you
then
find
take
out
the test.
It was like a fake. And you're like,
yeah,
that's a fake. And they're like, I don't know. It doesn't pass the dot test. I don't know how to tell a fake, but it doesn't pass the dot test.
It sounds a little bit terrifying, but I guess that's the process you have to go through to really get like, this is my $80,000 card.
I think you don't ship it at that point. I think you send somebody in person to like fly to the place with it. And it's like Seto Kaiba showing up with the briefcase and you take it out and you're like, I brought this here to get graded.
In my mind, I'm imagining the keymaker from Matrix Reloaded with his thing on. He's got the little, like, he's looking, trying to see what
loop, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I know that's not what's going on, but it feels like it should be.
No, I think that is pretty, but they take a jeweler's loop and they're looking, they're seeing that the edges are worn and they're saying like, yeah, it's got a little bit of like scuds on it. It's a 8.1 or whatever to put it in the slab. And I don't think it takes that long. I think that the actual grading process probably takes a few minutes per card, with the exception of certain cards that probably have special features that they have to verify.
Oh, like if it was a misprint or...
Yeah, like if the back was upside down relative to the front, that increases the value. People love that stuff. Or if it's like offset, there's like all sorts of weird misprints. Sometimes they'll be like shifted upwards, so it will have another card's name on the bottom, and it's like, oh, well, this isn't like eggnog or stash. This is actually blank, the other card.
Before people get any ideas, would you say that you could use Magic as some sort of investment?
Could you? Yes. Should you? Probably not. So there are, I will say, there's a heavy tie with a lot of history between the Bitcoin market and cryptocurrency and the Magic market. And this is not me saying this as like the same guys invest in one or the other. The first major place that you could trade Bitcoin online, MTGOX, that's the MTG online exchange, and it became the Bitcoin one. It also was subject to a major hack. And hey, back in like 2010, because I was getting into Magic, I bought me some Bitcoin, then it went away because that website got hacked. But I did it through, like, I learned about it through the Magic community. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying there are ties there. So you can actually see fluctuations in the Magic trading market that tie directly to the crypto trading market. So they are both wildly unstable, and they are also related to each other because there's such a heavy crossover of people like selling one to buy another, to buy another, to buy a thing, it's like its own weird stock market.
I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
That's why I'm mentioning it, because not everybody knows that there's like this history that's been going on for so long. Turns out nerds like nerd stuff. But Magic, your cards could be banned, and that could reduce their value. Or just a better card could come out. Or maybe they'll reprint it, and that means that there's more of them out there available for people to play, and that could reduce the value. It's not stable. It's not something that you should put money into, especially if you are not somebody who knows what they are doing. But it can be fun to be like, yeah, I have my $50 card, and it's really awesome. I personally think it's more fun to just have, like, cards with cool art or, like, special art that your friends painted onto the cards. That's really fun to me.
Is there a type of card that people tend to gravitate to more? When you think video games, you think like, oh, people like that character because of this. Or when it comes to books or movies, there's like a certain type people will gravitate to. Is there anything in Magic where you're like, yeah, every time they release that type of card, people are there, and it's just like the card of the minute?
I actually can't think of any that are. As far as like art treatments, the anime or Japanese guest arts tend to be the ones that have a lot of people seeking them out because they're fun and people are weebs. But like there isn't like a character I can think of that people are like, yeah, I gotta get the next Liliana card because she's just so cool, she's so pretty. I think this is in part because they just don't really do enough with the story. Like, people don't fall in love with the characters enough, so they don't get emotionally attached to the characters in a way that would cause sales to happen. People are playing to win a lot of the time, so it's like, yeah, unless the card's good, I don't really want it. But people will like have collections of cards that are like part of a set, or maybe they're within a theme, or if they were all part of like a special bonus sheet, like the Transformers cards. There's not that many of them. People will collect all of them just to have them.
That's really cool. Is there anything else in the realm of things you probably didn't know, but definitely are interesting? Because that got me. You blew my mind right now, and now things are clicking for me in ways that I was like, what? Is there anything else that you're like, here's some cool stuff you probably should know?
Here's some cool stuff you should probably know. Magic the Gathering has been around since 1993. And a lot of the players who played in those first competitive, like pro tours and other like big tournaments are still playing in tournaments today. Some of the big names are still people who will show up in tournaments and be like, hey, I remember watching you play in 95. Wow, you're still really good at Magic. There are people who have built their entire careers off of Magic the Gathering. And I don't just mean like content creators like me. I mean people who start in competitive play and then they go on to be designers of Magic. It's got its own whole crazy ecosystem, and it's really fun.
Every summer at Summer Games Fest, they have a thing called Play Days. All the new games coming out, you can sit down and play them, but Magic is there every year. And every year, they show off one of their many new decks that are coming out, or their new sets. And I make a point to sit down, even though I know that if it wasn't just we're learning something new, I would be destroyed. But I get to sit down with some of the amazing people that are there to show off these decks, and they're just like, let's have fun. And that is so refreshing when you're at a big event and it's like, no, we have an hour. Let's just get silly and start looking at these cards, and we'll start playing stuff. And I'm like, what the hell does this even do? What does this mean? So if I free run, I can just go boop, 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 boop. And they're like, pretty much. And I love that aspect of it. And so I genuinely hope most people's experiences, especially first time, are that.
Yes, I want people to have fun and ask questions.
Do you answer questions that people have just randomly, like, I don't know what this means. How does this work?
I will point people to the resources. There's a really great wiki, Magic Wiki. It will explain mechanics in kind of a easy to understand way. There are mechanics articles on the Magic website. There's lots of great online resources to help you understand it. And one of the biggest things you can do is reading the card explains the card. You just have to learn how to parse the language and how it works on the card. Because as I said before, there's some weird rules interactions. And I will be playing with people who have played for a long time, and they'll still be like, wait, how come that didn't die? There was a state-based change in your life total, and it caused this to become a larger creature, even though it was dealt the damage, so it didn't die. And this indestructible creature can still be destroyed, even though it's indestructible. Okay. I don't get it, but yes.
I imagine there's a lot of that. I don't get it, but I trust you enough to believe you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's, I mess up too. Like, especially in like paper, I'll be like, wait, that's what the card says? I own this card. I put it in my deck. What do you mean it says and? I thought it said or.
It's not that serious.
No, it's unless you're in a tournament. It's just about having fun. You're playing your silly wizard cardboard. You're casting spells. I cast an elephant and I use it to crush your squirrel because the squirrel is as big as the elephant. Don't question it.
Right. And I would imagine if you're doing competitive tournament play, at that point, you kind of know what you're doing.
But if you have a question, at most tournaments, there should be judges. And you raise your hand up and you say, Judge, can you please help us? I'm not sure what will happen when I do this. They'll explain it to you. Try not to reveal any information to your opponent. You say, thank you so much, Judge. Okay, so now I'm going to do this on my turn. That happens. Like at tournaments, people will call over judges to ask about niche rules interactions. You'll see this happen in tournament coverage. You will see the pro players just like double check, like, hey, I can do this, right? Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you.
Has there ever been a time in competitive play where someone asked a question and the judge was like, let me ask someone else. And it's just like, no one knew.
Usually not when I'm playing because I'm not playing that seriously. But I have seen a judge be like, okay, I need to get a higher level judge. And then there used to be like a judge chat. I think that now there's just like a Discord that's essentially you pose the question to all of the judges and you say, judges of the world, what the heck happens when this and this with this around you and this is on the board? And somebody will be like, allow me to show you. Just give me 5 minutes and a calculator.
Honestly, that's kind of fun in that it's so open to all the possibilities of what these combination of cards could do that potentially there could be a combination that people just don't recognize or understand because not many people do it.
There's niche interactions that just only come up once in a blue moon. And when they do come up, they might not even be that powerful. They're just weird. So, yeah, it does happen.
Like being able to kill an indestructible thing. And
that one comes up a lot more than you'd think, but it still catches people off guard, especially new players. Something that is indestructible can still be destroyed, just not by something that destroys something. It's usually due to being sacrificed or state-based actions. It's like a creature can't exist if it has 0 toughness. It just can't. So if it has 0 toughness, it dies, even if it says indestructible on the card. So people reduce the toughness of a creature to kill it. And damage marked doesn't reduce toughness. You can still absorb damage. That's all very strange.
It does have kind of a, I figured out a way to kill the unkillable thing. If it doesn't exist, it can't be alive.
And you exile it, and it's gone. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before we wrap it up here, is there anything that you would say to new players or old players or people who are like me who have been around on the periphery for many, many, many years that you want to just get out and let people know about, or any videos of yours you would recommend, or any upcoming streams that you would say, no, this would help you, or it would be fun to watch?
I don't think that far in advance, so unfortunately, no. But I will say this. They're coming out with SpongeBob cards. Not a whole set, but there's going to be SpongeBob. He's going to be on Magic cards. So wait for that one.
I really want to see the SpongeBob combos.
Give me the Squidward Tentacles infinite combo that makes you kill yourself. I want to see it happen.
If you had to guess, what colors do you think SpongeBob characters would be?
A lot of them are going to have to be blue because they're sea creatures. I feel like it's right there.
You're right. I didn't even think about that. That's the most obvious answer. Did not click with me at all. I was like, maybe SpongeBob would be, I don't know, green? No.
White, green, blue, white. 5 colors SpongeBob, and he's doing the little imagination thing with the rainbow on it.
I would love it if you had to combine SpongeBob. Like, it was like an old Yu-Gi-Oh deck where it's like, you must find all the pieces of SpongeBob. And SpongeBob's most broken character.
You assemble like SpongeBob, the spatula, the Krusty Krab hat, and it's just like, and you combine them to make the ultimate I don't think that they would do that. I don't think that they would give us Exodia in SpongeBob form, but it would be funny to see SpongeBob have competitive playability.
Obviously, I don't make Magic cards, but if I did, I think you're right. SpongeBob, all his accoutrements, we put all those things on him, but then the card that unlocks it all is called Goofy Goober, and that's like an instant win. You cannot lose. Once you've assembled full SpongeBob and played Goofy Goober, automatic win. That'd be amazing.
Will they do that? Probably not. Would it be really funny if they did? Yeah, really funny.
Oh, Amy, thank you for taking the time to talk with me and explain a little bit more about the world of Magic the Gathering. I'm glad I got to bug you with all the questions that I had about it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you had questions that I could answer. I think that Magic's a great game. It's got a ton of depth, lots of different ways you could approach it, and we're about to head into another really big year of Magic. So if you are thinking about maybe buying into some of those decks, just saying, Final Fantasy's coming up. We're getting some cool things. The next set is, I think, it's race cars, Aether Drift. That's cool too.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Fast and the Furious, maybe.
Yeah, I was like, wait, are we getting the cars and the drivers? I'll look it up. I can't put this all on you. That's not what you're here for. Oh, thank you again for telling me about Magic the Gathering.